Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Michael Hart, and today we are recording for Geography 106, World Geography, the basics. Now, what are the basics? I think in every discipline, when you talk about the basics, you're talking about the most fundamental concepts without which that discipline cannot exist. So, when we talk about geography, what are those fundamental concepts without which geography cannot exist? I submit to you that these concepts are location, place, region, and space. And let's take each one in turn. So what is location? Most geographic study begins with learning the location of places. So location can be absolute or it can be relative. Absolute location provides a definite reference to locate a place. For example, it can be latitude and longitude. It can be a street address, or even a township and range system. In contrast, relative location describes a place with respect to its environment and its connection to other places. So if location is a noun, then place is an adjective. This is an analogy. Place qualifies location. Place describes location. It describes human and physical characteristics of a location. So physical characteristics include description, such as mountains, rivers, beaches, topography, any animal and plant life, right? Human characteristics include the human design cultural features of a place, from land use and architecture to forms of livelihood and religion to food and folkways to transportation and communication network. So if I were to describe physical characteristics, let's say, of a place, let's say it's Santa Monica, California, I would say that much of it is mountains, it has a canyon, and it has the kinds of trees and vegetation that can grow in an arid climate if you add water to it. And if I were to describe, human characteristics, these are man-made features of a place, I would say, well, it has a lot of banks. Its roads are paved. It has a lot of street lights, etc. Next concept is the concept of region. And region divides the world into manageable units of geographic study. So the reason why we have regions is that so we can better organize and therefore remember and later understand different parts of the world. Now, regions come in three varieties, and these varieties are formal, functional, and vernacular. The formal regions are those regions that are defined administratively. Administratively, you find countries, you find states, you find counties, provinces, territories. In other words, anything that human beings have defined in an administrative way. There are also functional regions, and these describe the way that regions function, but not necessarily describe as to how they are organized administratively. Let's say Silicon Valley. It's not an administrative region, but it's a very meaningful region from a functional point of view because it describes a certain geographical area in which computer and internet companies work in a symbiotic way. Or if you talk about the greater Los Angeles metropolitan area or the greater Toronto metropolitan area, those areas, they center around a particular location, but they spill over multiple jurisdictions. So what defines a functional region is its functionality, be it some kind of economical functionality, like with the Silicon Valley, or be it some kind of socioeconomic functionality, like with the greater Toronto area or the greater Los Angeles metro area or the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And finally, we have vernacular regions. Vernacular regions are so called because these are regions that are named by people in everyday life. And so what do I mean by this? In the context of the United States, people often refer to the South, and everyone kind of knows what it is, although there is not a precise, bright line definition of what is and isn't the South or the Midwest. And if you extend this to a global context, you can talk about the Middle East. Well, that's a region, right? Or you can talk about the greater Middle East, which would include the part that is geographically associated with the Middle East, but also culturally in terms of North Africa, because it's culturally similar to West Asia. So vernacular regions have no exact formal boundaries. Rather, these are cognitive maps. These are maps that we have in our hands in order to designate for ourselves certain regions of the world. Lastly, we have space. Now, last but not least, in fact, of the four concepts that we are covering today, I would say that space is the most fundamental one. It's the central concept of geography. And what is so interesting, and this is both the creative part and also the downfall part of geography as we understand this discipline today, is that there's no precise definition of space. Why is this a scientific problem? Why is this a problem of theory, methodology, and application? And by theory, methodology, and application, I mean, if you do not have a more or less precise, or let's say a precise concept of geography, you cannot construct very solid scientific theory. You struggle with different methodologies, and it's very difficult to consistently apply geographical analysis from researcher to researcher and problem to problem, because not everyone can agree on a precise definition of geography. So the concept of space is a relational one. It acquires meaning and sense only when related to other concepts. So the concept of space may be conceived as a supplement to things, that is, substantively conceived objects. Now, having introduced geography in this way, let's press on and talk about how geography relates to other disciplines. I would have to say that geography is a bridge, scientifically speaking, between natural science, like physics, chemistry, and biology, and social sciences, like history, sociology, economics, anthropology, and political science. Why is it a bridge? Because it contains the elements of both. It has employed scientific methodologies and principles, like in the hard sciences, and it also employs concepts and ideas of softer sciences, like the social sciences. So geography also overlaps with geology in a number of areas. For example, the study of continents and continental drift, and the atmospheric and climatic studies. Geography uses both quantitative and qualitative methods, and there's also some interaction between geography and astronomy when it comes to mathematical methods, which is not surprising because geography and astronomy are fundamentally about space. The difference is that geography confines itself to one planet, really, and astronomy doesn't. Astronomy literally is, spatially speaking, infinite, because it goes out and away from the Earth in all directions. And so you can understand while spatial analysis in both disciplines would lend itself to same mathematical approaches. The rise of programmable computers since the 1950s significantly expanded the use of quantitative methodology in geography. A particularly good example is geographic information systems. Now, every discipline has multiple subfields, and geography is no exception. There's cultural geography, economic geography, health geography, historical geography, political geography, population geography, rural geography, social geography, transport geography, and urban geography. Wow. Why am I teaching you all this? Just to make clear that those who do want to specialize in this field and who go on to graduate school eventually settle down in one, sometimes two of these fields, usually just one. However, sometimes they're closely related. For example, historical geography and political geography are closely related. Cultural geography and political geography can be very closely related. But you end up specializing in one or two of these. Physical geography, aka geosystems, aka physiogeography. So physical geography is one of the two broad segments or sectors of geography, the other one being cultural geography. So let's look at what type of things people study under physical geography. Biogeography, water resources geography, also known as hydrology, climate geography, also known as climatology, geomorphology, meteorology, pedology, which is the study of soils, paleogeography, coastal geography, and oceanography. I should not actually be lecturing this late, so I start tripping over my words. Physical geography also includes landscape ecology, geomatics, environmental geography. The origins of geography go back to the ancient world. Eratosthenes was a Greek mathematician, geographer, poet, astronomer, and musical theorist. He was also the chief librarian of the Library of Alexandria, and he was the first to use the term geography, which is why I included him in this lecture. However, the modern study of geography really dates back to the early 19th century, and the reason why is because you have certain socioeconomic changes during that century which allow various new fields of study to emerge. They typically do so by separating themselves from philosophy, which was known as the queen of all sciences. But as specialization grows, you have different fields asserting themselves, coming out of philosophy and becoming really separate fields. And the reason why this is happening in the 19th century is because of the Industrial Revolution, which allows for greater wealth and therefore greater specialization of labor, including scientific labor. The mathematical part of human endeavor really skyrockets. And the reason why you have this skyrocketing is because people specialize in ever narrower fields of study. So if you had only a small segment of brainiacs, of very highly educated people, and their field used to be broad, it was philosophy, it was everything. Then since the 19th century, you have specialization galore, and geography comes out of that socio-historical context. So you have Alexander Humboldt and Carl Ritter, who are considered to be founders of modern geography as a separate field of study. Humboldt was particularly known for his quantitative studies of geography and for pioneering the field of biogeography, which is the branch of biology that deals with the geographical distribution of plants and animals. And Carl Ritter is known for his use of comparative methods of geography and for organic dynamic understanding of state boundaries, which later would be misused by the Nazis and the like in order to imagine a country as a growing body which needs that growth in order to assert itself. But what Ritter was actually pointing out was that state boundaries, the boundaries of different countries, city-states, and empires are not sacred quasi-religious concepts, that they're very much changeable, and in different historical areas you have different boundaries, and it's natural for things to be this way. There isn't any fixed, correct, organic boundary that exists for all time. Geographical trends in the United States. and more precisely trends pertaining to knowledge of geography in the United States. And these are not very encouraging. You have rather poor knowledge of geography. I have some examples here. And of course, you can come up with your own. You have links to various YouTube videos, some of them more hilarious than others, that show just how little people in the United States know about geography. But this malaise of geographical ignorance is not limited to the United States. The reason why the United States is brought up is because in the context of one of the wealthiest countries on earth, to have such an appalling lack of knowledge of geography, it really is an embarrassment. But anyway, as we go through this course, we will try to learn a great deal about geography so that we don't have to feel embarrassed, at least for ourselves. So that's the introduction, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Over and out.